In the second hour of today's program with United States Senator Tom Cotton from the great state of Arkansas. Senator Cotton, welcome back. Always good to talk to you every Monday.
Good evening, Hugh. Great to be back on with you.
Last time I talked to you, I asked you if you'd seen 13 Hours. Have you had a chance yet to make it to the movie?
Yes, I did. I saw it Friday afternoon. It's a remarkable tale of heroism.
What is your reaction to the authenticity? You have been in these situations, firefights as an Army Ranger leading a squad in Baghdad. This is obviously Benghazi, but is it that chaotic and that uncertain?
Well, once the rounds start flying, Hugh, yes, it's extremely chaotic and uncertain. The movie does a very good job of depicting what firefights are like in that circumstance, especially during the evening when you have to use night vision goggles and various kinds of infrared spotting devices. The security contractors are displaying tactical patience. They use well-aimed fire. They have interlocking sectors of fire. They use cover, concealment. All of that's very realistic. Now, the chaos that the movie displays, the inability to tell friend from foe, in my opinion, is the result in part of the policy decision to keep security at such a low level in Benghazi. If you're not out in your area of operations, if you're not working with the local people, then of course you don't know friend and foe. That's just the nature of trying to patrol in an unknown area. But in Iraq or Afghanistan, you're out in your area of operations every day, especially after the surge in both countries, then you're able to distinguish friend and foe.
Well, that brings me to the key question about the recreation of the Benghazi events. The February 11th Brigade, they didn't really wear a patch, and we weren't really sure if they were for us or against us. Was that similar to the time you were with the Rangers in Benghazi? I mean, in Baghdad?
No, well, I was with the 101st Airborne in Baghdad. He was a platoon leader there. So I was out on patrol every day, and we frequently had Iraqi Army or Iraqi National Police with us. And they did wear uniforms. They did drive in marked vehicles. So we didn't have that issue. Now, there were some bad guys that had infiltrated in those forces, no doubt, and that's why you have what's known as a green-on-blue attack and military vernacular of friendly forces that have been infiltrated by bad guys. Fortunately, we didn't see that in my unit when I was there. But in my experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, the local forces were uniformed.
On Sunday night, I was in D.C. and I had Saturday night, I had an Uber driver, Afghan national who had emigrated, gotten his citizenship. He still has family there, talking about the chaos that will ensue if America leaves, and quite animated about it because it was a long drive. I went from Alexandria downtown, probably spent 20 minutes chatting with the fellow. He was a fascinating guy, as most Uber drivers are. What do you think, Tom Cotton, happens if we withdraw from Afghanistan?
I think Afghanistan will descend back into chaos, much like Iraq has after President Obama hastily withdrew all of our troops in 2011. Apparently, even my son thinks that Afghanistan is going to descend into chaos if we abandon Afghanistan. But this has been, it's utterly predictable, just as it was predicted in Iraq in 2011. You can even begin to see some of the country teetering on the brink, especially in the South, as President Obama has drawn down our troop levels too quickly in Afghanistan and announced those drawdowns in advance as the Taliban and al-Qaeda begin to return to Kandahar and Helmand province.
Now, I assume that you get to stay home on a Monday and come home early because it's Martin Luther King holiday, and although some of us in broadcast work, the government does shut down, so I want America to understand that we're honoring a great American in Martin Luther King, and that you're staying home today because most of the federal government is staying home today, so my hat is off to you.
Yeah, the Senate's out of session. I was privileged to go to the Martin Luther King Interfaith Prayer Breakfast in Little Rock this morning where we celebrated Dr. King's legacy, and I told the audience there that I actually led a delegation to Burma just a couple of weeks ago where we met with former political prisoners who were recently elected to their parliament under the leadership of Aung San Suu Kyi, who herself, like Dr. Martin Luther King, was a Peace Prize winner and was inspired by his teachings. Just a reminder of how far-reaching his impact has been in our world. E.J. Dionne has a great tweet today of a 1957 speech by Martin Luther King, which foreshadowed a Solzhenitsyn quote that the line between good and evil runs not between states but through the human soul. Dr. King said something very close to that years before Solzhenitsyn wrote it. And it's a remarkable day, and I'm glad that we celebrate Dr. King's legacy. But now I want to ask the politics of it. The African-American vote, I can't recall what percentage you got in your Arkansas Senate race. Did you ever get crosstabs, Senator, from 2014? No, Hugh, we didn't have exit polls in Arkansas.
All right, so last night, the conventional wisdom post Democratic debate is that Hillary will win because the African-American vote will stay loyal to her because of Bill Clinton. You know Arkansas, you know the Clintons. Do you believe that to be the case?
Well, Hugh, first off, I hope you didn't watch the Democratic debate last night.
No, I went to The Revenant, which was a lot like the Democratic debate.
You know, in 2008, Hugh, if you recall, Barack Obama was losing in South Carolina until he won in Iowa. So I think it's way too early to try to predict who's going to win any presidential primary, even the first two primaries, or caucus and primary in Iowa and New Hampshire. And it's too early to predict what any particular voting bloc will do as well. These things are very dynamic. And I don't think Hillary Clinton should be counting on the support of any particular group. She has to earn it, like every candidate for office has to earn the support of every voter and every group of voters.
Now, you are a Harvard Law grad, so I want to ask, did you have Lawrence Tribe as your professor?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you have Alan Dershowitz?
I didn't have Alan Dershowitz either.
Well, that's good because Alan Dershowitz says Ted Cruz is the best law student he ever had, so that would have had to make you a number two. So at least you haven't.
I did have Liz Warren and Elena Kagan, though.
Oh my gosh!
I think that they agree that I was a better student than I am a senator.
So I want to ask you though, as you look at the Republican field, are you satisfied with the? I know you haven't endorsed, and you're not going to endorse. And when you endorse, you'll tell me. But when you look at it, is the race unfolding the way you want it to unfold, with the issues being discussed that you want discussed?
Hugh, the race it's still early, although it's hard for people who do politics for a living to believe that. We still haven't had anyone vote, so it's still hard to say exactly how it will unfold. And again, I'd say trying to predict who's going to win, New Hampshire or South Carolina right now, much less win the nomination, is like trying to predict, who's going to win the Super Bowl in Week 13 of the NFL. So there's a lot of race to go. I do think that there's been an appropriate focus on national security and the threats that we face from Islamic radicalism in the form of the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, and the returning threat of Russia and the rising threat of Iran. I also think that there's been an appropriate focus on immigration once again, that this is one area in which elites and normal Americans are most disconnected. And I think that it's important for our country, or for our party, to recognize that disconnection and to respond to the very legitimate concerns that Arkansans and Americans all across the country have. So I think we're having a good, healthy debate, which you can see in our debates, unlike the Democrats who bury their debates at 9 o'clock at Sunday night on a 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
But I think it's still premature to say how that debate and how the election will ultimately unfold.
All right, in our 3 minutes left, I'd like your opinion of the Iranian seizure of our sailors, their treatment, their release, and then the hostage deal. You put out a statement, which I linked and tweeted out, but I'd like people to hear from you, who followed all those events very closely.
Hugh, the last 6 days have been very, very bad days for the United States and for our position in the Middle East. I don't know what's more astonishing, what's happened from the seizure of those sailors as hostages and the humiliation and the violation of the Geneva Conventions and parading them around in public, to the hostage deal that President Obama agreed to over the weekend, to the $1.7 billion in cold, hard U.S. Treasury cash we just gave to Iran, or the fact that President Obama and John Kerry and their apologists seem to think that the last 6 days have been a success for U.S. foreign policy.
$1.7 billion? It's that much?
Yes, and that's just one small element of the sanctions relief they're going to get. John Kerry is out there quibbling whether it's $50 billion or $100 billion or $150 billion. Well, Iran's entire economy is only $400 billion a year. And I would say giving them one red cent is too much to give them, since they're still the world's worst sponsor of terrorism with the blood of hundreds of Americans on their hands.
Yeah, but when you said $1.7 billion, that's the hard cash transfer that happened today?
From the United States government. That's not money that's held in escrow overseas or from other governments. That is United States government giving Iran, the world's worst state sponsor of terrorism, $1.7 billion in cold, hard cash.
I don't know how much a Hezbollah frontline unit costs. I don't know what an Iranian...
Costs a lot less than $1.7 billion.
That's it. Or an Iranian National Guard boat that would take down our sailors. Very quick question. The White House said we're not at war with Iran, so those sailors were not covered by the Geneva Convention. I know you know the rules of war because you're a platoon leader and combat veteran. Was that conduct justified regardless of our technical situation vis-a-vis Iran?
Well, first, in response to the White House comment, why is Barack Obama and John Kerry always so insistent on rushing out and being Iran's lawyer?
That's true.
Disputes. And second, their treatment of our sailors, of course, was not justified. If those sailors did, in fact, inadvertently venture into Iranian waters, there's regular radio contact between all navies in the Persian Gulf. They could have simply alerted our sailors, who could have then diverted course. That's what other countries would do. That's, of course, what the United States would have done to an Iranian boat in the same situation against, say, our naval base in Bahrain.
Tom Cotton, Senator from Arkansas, thank you for joining us on Martin Luther King Day. I appreciate it very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Talk to you